Okay, hello everybody. I think we will make a start. So welcome to today's webinar. My name is Emma Pateman and I'm a Senior Events Executive here at the institution. And I'm the Project Manager for the challenge from the IMechE side. Thanks for joining the session today. We do have a few teams competing virtually in July. So today we'll be talking about both the virtual competition and the live competition at BMFA Buckminster. It'll be an opportunity to understand both aspects of the competition and to ask any questions that you have. So please do put any questions you have throughout using the chat function. You may get some replies using the chat, but there will also be an opportunity to respond to questions virtually after each section as well. So let me hand over to our first speaker today, Kristina, who's going to talk about the virtual side of the competition.
Great, thank you, Emma. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Brilliant. Okay, so as I say, my name's Kristina Lindon. I am the UAS Challenge Project Manager, so I will be there at the live competition, but I'm also responsible for the running of the virtual competition. So we can go to the next slide. So in terms of the virtual competitions, there are a few differences when it comes to the key dates and deliverables for the submissions and the key milestones. The X-Plane model is actually due in just shy of 2 weeks' time on the 6th of June. There will be a late delivery penalty. If you can get that to us early, we will do everything that we can to have a look at it and check your submission to make sure that it actually loads within X-Plane. Based on the experience of last year, there are a few teams that didn't do this, and when we came to actually load their aircraft, it wasn't in the correct configuration in terms of the X-Plane requirements, so therefore their aircraft couldn't load and we couldn't fly them. So if you can get them submitted before the 6th of June, and I don't mean at the 5th of June at 10 o'clock, we will do our best to have a look at them and just make sure that we can open them in X-Plane and there's no issues. You've got your A0 poster, so that's due on the 19th of June 2022. The Dragon's Den video, obviously those who are competing in the virtual event won't be there to give the Dragon's Day presentation at the live event, so that's a video submission on the 19th of June as well, and that's got a late delivery penalty as long with that. The next one, if required, we'll do some Dragon's Den interviews, so you will be notified if you are required to do an interview on the week of the 20th to 24th of June. As you said, this may not, or it may be required. We will let you know following the submission of those Dragon's Den videos whether we need to do this. And then the awards ceremony. So this slightly different from last year because we are doing a lot of the deliverables and the awards along with the live event. The award ceremony will be conducted alongside the live event and it will all be done at once. Yeah, and just a note there that all the team submissions will be uploaded to the Mushroom platform. So where you've done all your submissions before, it will be an X-Plane submission there. If we go to the next slide. So the X-Plane model. So I just wanted to talk you through for some of the key requirements and some of the things that you should be taking into consideration. So when you're designing your aircraft within X-Plane, your payload should be classified as a water payload. This will allow us to do the delivery and monitor where it lands within X-Plane. So if it's not set to water payload, we will not be able to do that as part of the payload challenge. So classify it as a water payload in weight and balance in X-Plane. The teams will be responsible for setting their maximum takeoff weight and payload weight. It will be flown at maximum payload. So if you say that your aircraft should load 2.5 kilos of payload, we should be able to open X-Plane and see that 2.5 kilo payload already in there. If not, and you don't want to do that and you want each of the flights to be done at different payloads, That needs to go in your guidance document, which I'll talk about in a second. If you don't change them settings, X-Plane will automatically set it to the maximum payload it thinks your aircraft will have. For example, last year we had one aircraft that weighed 6 kilos who had a 15 kilogram payload. We will deduct points if you have not put them settings in correctly, as these are a few of the key design parameters of your aircraft. When you're submitting your X-Plane model, it should be a single file that contains the airplane. It's an ACF file, which contains all the objects, textures, etc. And within there, it should contain all your subfolders with any required information, such as airfoils, etc. If you put any additional textures on your aircraft, any additional information that you want to load in, it should all be contained within that one folder. In order to submit this to us, it should be a compressed zip file folder submitted through Mushroom. Please, when you name your zip file, include your university name and T name. Do not rename or amend any of the files within that zip file. You are only renaming the zip file itself. If they don't contain the university name and the team name, it will make it harder for us to track what submissions are come through where. When we have got a significant number going through X-Plane, we need to be able to identify, without opening those files and your aircraft, which one belongs to which university. So last year, one of the optional extras we said was you could submit a guidance document to the pilots. So we have trained pilots who will be flying your aircraft, and it will be a simulation model of the exact challenge. So it'll be based at BMFA Buckminster. It'll be using the same coordinates of what we used at the live event. It will be taking off from the same position, and it will be landing at the same position. However, you will not be there to tell us how you want your aircraft handled, or if there's any key characteristics or parameters we need to be concerned about, or that you think it would be beneficial for the pilot to know. Last year, as I said, we made this an optional extra, but the aircraft that did exceptionally well were those that submitted a guidance document, which told us exactly how to switch the aircraft on if you put any additional buttons or stages within the aircraft startup procedure. If you have your payload weight, if you list what it should be flown at, we will go in and check that. Additional controls, if you know that aircraft has got a stability issue, you can make us aware of that and we'll do our best. We will only be flying this twice. So you'll get 2 goes at doing the mission. If we can't get the aircraft flying within them 2 goes, which are limited to 15 minutes each, then it will be an automatic score of 0. The 15 minutes is what we give for the live event as well. So we will start deducting points if it goes over them 15 minutes. So if you've submitted that guidance document which tells us exactly how to do that startup procedure and any information that we should be aware of, it makes it much easier for us to follow. And as I said, based on the experience of last year, this helped considerably for the pilots. The one thing I will say regarding the X-Plane model, do not go in and create an X-Plane model based on another aircraft that already exists and is one of the examples provided with the X-Plane itself. We'll be able to tell. We will open every X-Plane model and we will look at all the design parameters to make sure that they match what has been in your documented submissions going forward. So we will be looking for what you said will be in your aircraft, and if we start to see any differences, you will have questions from us. So one of the things I will recommend going forward is that X-Plane remembers. So if you've created your aircraft and tested it on the same install of X-Plane on one computer, reinstall that X-Plane because it remembers. So just because that you've got it all working perfectly on that computer doesn't mean that when we have it in a fresh install that it will work. One of the other things I will note is the X-Plane model should be in X-Plane version 10 or version 11. If you put in your guidance document what version it will be, we will automatically run all in version 11 unless we are told to use version 10. There will be a guidance document coming out at the end of the week, which will detail everything that I've just said, including additional steps, which will show you exactly how to save and submit your X-Plane model. If there are any questions once that's released, please get in touch and we'll answer them as soon as we can. But that process of loading and creating that zip file works within that guidance document. Next slide. So in terms of the X-Plane mission scoring, so it does deviate slightly from the live event just because of the limitations of X-Plane. You will have the same points issued for all the documentation that you've submitted up till now, but in the actual mission itself, we'll be looking at the takeoff. The payload, carriage and delivery will have 150 points, endurance 100 points, climb and glide 100 points, and then the precision landing 50 points. As I said, there'll be a 3-point deduction for every 5 seconds over the 15 minutes that it takes to do that mission. And it will be the mission score over the best 2 attempts. So if we spend 1 attempt having to get your aircraft in the air, it means you only have 1 attempt then to get your mission score. So we do really emphasize on putting together that guidance document, because you won't be there to explain it to the pilot. They'll be there going based off what you've said. Okay, next slide. Okay. And then your A0 poster. The purpose of this is to summarize your design, your development, your manufacturing and testing on a single page. So let me emphasize this. What we want to see is your design life cycle. How did you go from your initial idea or your initial requirements of carrying out this mission to how then did you deliver an aircraft that you believe meets those requirements? What have you done within that process? We want to see it all on one page. You want to give us the key milestones that you achieved, the decision process, your design and development, manufacturing and testing achievements, the innovations in your design. Remember what the awards are that we've got there. You want to highlight all those areas that you're exceptionally proud of: innovation, safety, and the environmental impact of your UAS as well. Next slide. And then the Dragon's Den presentation. The purpose of this is to present your project to potential investors covering your business plan, STEM engagement, and environmental issues. So it should be a 15-minute video covering the revenue model, sales projections, and how your UAS meets the customer requirements, how you promoted the competition, and your design with schools, the media, on social media. So wherever you think that you've done an exceptional job in promoting any of these aspects, highlight it to us. How you've minimized the environmental impact of your design and operation, whether it's taken into design considerations of you've used sustainable materials or whether it's other factors. Highlight that to us within this video. You know, it should be engaging and you should be presenting all those key sales parameters that you think make sure UAS stand out from others. And next slide. Brilliant. We come to the UAS Challenge Awards. So slightly differs again from last year. We will have 1 overall virtual grand champion. So that includes not only the performance within the competition itself and the virtual competition, but it's also all those report scores. So your PDR, your design and development specification, your CDR and your X-Plane mission. All those scores will be combined to give us 1 virtual champion. And next slide. Okay. And then we've got the subsection of awards. We've got innovation, which is based on the design and development specification. Your design, which is based on PDR, design, development specification, and CDR. Safety, again, design, development spec. Environmental, business proposition, and media engagement will be based on your Dragon's Den video that you've submitted to us. So the design award will be combined with those from the live because that's based on the documentation that you have submitted until now. So as we said, that award will be given out and it will be judged across the whole competition, joint with those competing in the live event. The innovation, safety and environmental So this is up to the judge's discretion. If we believe that any team has really excelled in these areas, we will give the innovation, safety, or environmental award. If we don't believe that they are needed and we haven't seen any unique areas where the environment has been considered or safety has been really considered, then we don't have to give these out. So these may not be given or they may will. It all depends. And next slide. And that's the end of mine on the virtual competition. As I said, there will be a guidance document just to help you along in that submission process. But I just wanted to highlight today the key parameters that you should be seeing within your virtual submission, and a bit of LFE from what we've seen from last year's competition, where we've seen mistakes made. And it can be within X-Plane. A very simple mistake can stop your aircraft running. So please follow that guidance document and make sure you're submitting it through each step. Check it 2 or 3 times, because missing one of them steps can be the difference between your aircraft flying perfectly and you getting a score to aircraft not even loading or the file not loading. And as we said, if you submit it a couple of days before, we will do our best to have it loaded so that we can check to make sure that that's working. Any questions? I'm going to take that as no. Emma, have you had any questions in the chat?
No, nothing as of yet. So just let's move on, and then if there are any questions, we can deal with those at the end as well.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing all your submissions. Oh, I'm sorry, Emma. The one thing I will last note: if any teams want to take part in the virtual competition that haven't going forward, even if you're taking part in the live event, please send us an email by the end of this week, and we can see if we can put you in the virtual competition as well. But yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristina. Perfect. So in that case, let's move on to the live competition. The live competition will take place at BMFA Buckminster. You've got the address on your screen there. I know there would be a few of you who may have attended last year's event, but I believe this venue the site will be new to most of you. You've got a site plan there on your screen. The nearest towns to the venue are Melton Mowbray and Grantham. Both of them are only about a 20-minute drive away from the site. As teams, you'll be responsible for arranging your own travel to the event. There will be plenty of free parking available on site for anyone driving, so that won't be a problem. The only thing we would say is that we are expecting up to potentially 30 teams, and so may have up to about 250 students on site. So within your teams, if you can share cars rather than each driving individually, but that would really help us out, and it will help us to get you on site quicker as well. And for anyone attending by public transport, the nearest stations are also in Melton Mowbray and Grantham. You'll be able to get taxis from either station. I would strongly recommend you book a taxi in advance, especially if you're coming from Melton Mowbray, as there aren't normally taxis waiting for you at that station. In terms of accommodation, there will be free camping facilities on site available to you all. If you're planning to use the camping facilities, if you can, please let us know, just so we know exactly who to expect on the campsite. We'll have catering facilities, toilets and showers, and there will be charging bays available on the site as well. The camping is available between the 5th and the 8th of July, so camping will be available for the full duration of the event. There's just a note there about the weather, particularly for those teams not based in the UK, to prepare for all eventualities and prepare for rain, so let's make sure you're covered there. If you would prefer alternative accommodation, there are accommodation options in both Melton Mowbray and Grantham. As teams, you'll be responsible for organising your own accommodation if you don't want to make use of the camping. So yeah, that's it there. There's just a question about camping on the chat. So yeah, if you can let us know if you do intend to camp, just send an email to the UAS Challenge email address, just so we've got that on record that you would like to camp. That would really help us out. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we can move across to the fly-off event agenda and safety. So I'll hand over to you, Lambert.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Emma, and hello all the teams. I'm Lambert Dopping-Heppenstahl, the head judge for the event. I'm going to take you through the agenda, but if we can go to the next slide, please, Emma. Just before I do that, just a little bit of a word about the competition rules. I have noticed when we've been looking at your various document submissions that there seems to be a few teams that are still reading the 2021 challenge rules. New rules were issued this year, and that picture there shows what it looks like, and it clearly says 2022 on the front cover. And please make sure you're using the 2022 rules because they are different to the 2021 rules and there are quite a number of changes in them. So please make sure you do that. Another point about the rules is what we ask you to do, in terms of deliverables, the things you deliver to us, there is a reason for all of that. And so please follow the instructions carefully. And particularly when you come to submit your FRR, because if you don't supply us the information that we require, which is clearly laid out, you do risk not being allowed to fly at the event. And just an example, in your CDR, 3/4 of you lost points for just not following the simple instructions of how to submit your CDR. So please read the rules carefully, and particularly in terms of the mission flying and things, there are a lot of details about the scoring, etc. Well, just moving on to what's going to be happening at the live event. There will be the opportunity for some test flying for international teams only. There won't be test flying for UK-based teams. So don't expect an opportunity to do some tests there, but international teams that have brought their equipment a long way, if they want to, will have the opportunity to do a quick test flight before they move on to the competition itself. We will be going through scrutineering, and Rod will talk you through all of that in some detail shortly. We will be doing the unboxing check, the timed taking your aircraft out of the box and assembling it. You will have to go through the formal pre-flight preparation before the flight safety officer allows you to take off. You will be doing your mission flights. You will also be doing your Dragon's Den presentation, and of course we will be observing you all the time that you are following safe working practices. So there are all these elements all running in parallel during the competition, and I will go through those now and to explain that. So if we go to the next slide, please, Emma. So as we've got quite a lot of teams attending this year, there is the opportunity to start a day early. In the rules, I think it says from Wednesday the 6th of July to Friday the 8th of July, but we have the option to allow people to arrive on the Tuesday the 5th of July. So if you're able to do that, it gives you an opportunity to get sorted out early and gives us a bit more flexibility, particularly with the vagaries of weather in this country, to get as many flights in as we possibly can. And so on day one, Tuesday the 5th, you can arrive on site between 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock British summer time. And when you arrive, you'll be able to set up your pits in the big marquee that will be there. And you will be able to do some initial preparation work on your aircraft. But there will be no working after 6 o'clock on that first day, Tuesday. And at 6:30, there will be a team and safety briefing for all teams that have arrived on that day. If we could go to the next slide, please. So the second day, Wednesday, the 6th of July, we'll open the pits at 6 o'clock so that there is no access to the pit area overnight. This is true every day. So the pits will open at 8 o'clock in the morning, and so you can get on preparing your aircraft. And then for international teams who want to do a test flight, at 10 o'clock, Scrutineering, the Scrutineers will arrive and will make sure your aircraft is safe to fly. And then under the control of the flight safety officer, you'll be able to do a test flight if you require it. You can't do any flights on your own. You will only ever be flying under the direct control of Chris Bradbury, the flight safety officer, and Chris will talk to you about flying a little later on this morning. At 12 o'clock, for those teams that are arriving on Wednesday morning, unable to arrive on Tuesday, there will be the team briefing and the safety briefing happen at 12 o'clock. And then at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, Scrutineering will open for all teams who are going to be flying their missions. So this is the formal scrutineering before the mission flying starts. And there will also be an opportunity, if you're ready, to do the pre-flight assembly and check, which is the timed removal from your storage case, which is worth 50 points in the competition. And so if you're ready on the Wednesday, the judges will be there to watch you do that and award the appropriate points. And then, so that we can get as much flying in as possible, that we will try and start flying, weather permitting, on the Wednesday afternoon. And so we can get an extra part of a day in for flying. And then at 7 o'clock, the pits will close and remain closed overnight. And so now for the next slide, please. So day 3, Thursday, the 7th of July, is when the real, we really get moving on the mission flying. So the pits will open at 8 o'clock in the morning again. Scrutineering, for those that weren't scrutineered on the Wednesday, will continue. And again, the opportunity for doing your unboxing time checks at any time during Thursday. Just to explain, we're not relating the unboxing directly to flying, so you won't have to do it immediately before you fly. You could fly first and do your unboxing at an opportunity later on if you want to. Mission flying will start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and there is a bonus, 20-point bonus, for people being in that queue at 9 o'clock in the morning, ready to fly, that you've been scrutineered, you're all ready to go out there. but equally there will be a 50-point penalty for any team who isn't ready to fly by 11 o'clock on that Thursday morning. Now, we're doing this because traditionally in previous years, people have messed around with their UAS all the first day, and so there just have been so few opportunities to fly. And so we want everybody to be ready to fly at least from 11 o'clock on the Thursday, and so we can give the opportunity for all of you to fly at least 2 missions during the competition. At 10 o'clock, the Dragon's Den will open for your presentations, and judges will start walking around the pits to gain material for their extra awards that they make on innovation, etc. And again, you can do your Dragon's Den presentation anytime during the Thursday and the Friday when you're not busy flying. And flying will finish at 6 o'clock on Thursday, and the pits will close at 7 o'clock in the evening, and so you'll have no access after that. Now, during Thursday and Friday, there will be school children coming to engage in some STEM, some science, engineering activities. And so they will be wandering around the pits talking to you as teams. And so you be aware of that. And we hope that you will engage with these children and encourage them an interest in science and technology and engineering, and potentially in aerospace in particular. So the next slide, please. Then on the Friday, again, we continue, pits opening at 8 o'clock to continue with the mission flying and any unboxing that hasn't been done, and continuing with Dragon's Den presentations during that day. And mission flying will finish at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you haven't done your mission flying by then you certainly won't be getting any points. But we hope that most of you will have had the opportunity to at least do a couple of flights during the Thursday and Friday. And the aim is to have the award ceremony at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then by 7 o'clock, we've got to have cleared everything away. All the pits have got to be emptied. Everything has got to be cleared up, because the site is being used for a different activity on Saturday, and so people will be arriving for that later on Friday. Okay, so that's an overview of the agenda. Clearly, in the briefings and things, we'll be giving some further detail on that. So if we can go to the next slide, please, on safety. This is about COVID-19 safety here. Chris, the flight safety officer, will talk more about safety, flying safety later on. And clearly, safety in the pits and how you look after yourselves and each other is really, really important. But just in terms of COVID-19, UK government advice has changed, and so there is no prescribed requirements in terms of wearing face masks and not shaking hands and things. And so assuming nothing changes between now and the competition, this is the position in the UK. But we would urge you that not to attend an event if you're feeling unwell, and particularly with respiratory or gastrointestinal symptoms, which could well be a an indication of COVID-19, or indeed if you've tested positive or suspect that you may have COVID-19 or been in close contact with someone who has got COVID-19, and that you continue to maintain good hygiene in covering your mouth and nose if you're coughing or sneezing, and washing hands and sanitizing regularly, so that we don't spoil the competition by spreading illness about. But in addition to that, remember that any personal protective equipment that you will need for operating your aircraft, you must bring with you to the site. So any dust masks or gloves and anything else of that sort that you may need, please bring to the site as well. Okay, the next slide, please, Emma. So I now move on to the judging of the event itself. So the key deliverables, the key dates going forward. The flight readiness review is the big next event for the live event. That must be completed and delivered by the 19th of June, and you must deliver by that date. And it's really important that, as I said earlier, that everything we've asked for, all the video, the documentation that goes with that, must be delivered by the 19th of June. And the potential that if you haven't done that and completed it all, we may not be allow you to fly at the event, because this is an important safety step in the competition. If we have any feedback to you in something that concerns us about your FRR submission, we will get back to you by the 28th of June on that, but we'll only do that if there's an issue. There won't be any other direct feedback to you on the FRR. As Kristina has said, the A0 poster, similarly to the virtual event, but you will bring yours as a physical poster along to the event on the 6th of July. The Dragon's Den presentation is done in person for you at the demonstration event, and we will do some interviewing of you on that Dragon's Den presentation. The mission scoring again happens at the demonstration event, and we will have the award ceremony at the 8th of July at the end of the event. Now, when submitting something, which is in this case just the flight readiness review, is the only thing that you're uploading to the Machine platform, just as Kristina said, you must label all your files, your video and everything else, all the documents, with your team number, your university and your name. Most of you have just been uploading, like CDR. You just labeled it CDR and put it in your folder, which is fine, but we have to download these documents to go through them. And if they're all just labeled video, we won't know which one is which. And so please, putting it in your folders, also include team number, university, and team name in your file name. Okay, on to the next slide, please. So the A0 poster is just as Kristina has been through for the live event, the same content, but because this will be displayed at the event, not only does it help the judges in making their awards, but also it's quite important for the STEM activity for the school children coming around. And we hope that you will take some of the children through your poster to explain how you've arrived at your design and what are the key features of it, as Kristina has already explained. We go to the next one, please. The Dragon's Den presentation, again, exactly as for the virtual one, but instead of it being a video, and apologies, I failed to remove the word video off the top of that slide. So it is an actual, you're doing a live presentation to the judges and some of the sponsors in a room at the event. You can do this in any way you like. I mean, most people do it with a PowerPoint presentation, but you can bring your aircraft along. You can bring any props you like to support your presentation, but it is just 15 minutes long as a maximum. And we will then spend 5 minutes or so asking you some further questions on it after your presentation. On to the next one, please. So the mission scoring, again, please look in the rules in detail. It is quite complicated, is the mission scoring, but the headlines of it is that the unboxing can earn you 50 points. And then when you do the mission flight, there's 120 points for the cargo drop, 40 points for the climb and glide, 40 points for navigation, and 40 points for the precision landing. And it's a single flight that has both the core and optional missions. And if you're going on for continuing to fly to include the optional missions, then you've got 60 points for the endurance element and 50 points for the area search. But it's just one continuous flight with a total length that mustn't exceed 15 minutes. But do look at the mission, the rules for the details of how the scoring is worked out. Now, also in the rules, it explains that the mission score that you will be given at the end of the day will be the average of your best 2 attempts. So there is the case if you do a really good flight on your first flight, you may decide, will I risk doing a second flight because I might lower my average? But equally well, if the opportunity arises for you to do 3 flights, we will take the average of your best 2. There will also be this year an appeals process, and so once your score has been posted, you have up to 30 minutes to lodge an appeal. But if we don't uphold your appeal, you will lose 20 points for wasting the judge's time. Okay, on to the next slide, please. And we'll then move on to what the awards are. Similar to the virtual event, but because there are more of you doing the live event, there will be a grand champion, a runner-up, a 3rd place, and a highest placed new entrant, and they're all made up of the aggregate score of your PDR, design and development specifications, CDR, core mission, and any optional missions you do. So out of that total of 600 points. Okay, on to the final slide in this section. These are the other awards at the discretion of the judges and the scrutineers. And as Kristina explained, they will only be awarded if we see something that is worth an award. But again, in the rules, it explains the basis for each of the awards, but they're largely out of stuff you've written in your documents and our observation at the event. The exception is the design award, which is just the aggregate of the documents that you've already submitted, so your PDR, your design and development specification, and your CDR, and that is joint with the virtual award, the virtual teams. I would emphasize on the safety award, it's about what you've written in your design and development specification of how you say that you're addressing safety, but the judges, the scrutineers, the flight safety officer, the site safety officer will all be looking very carefully at how you operate and conduct yourself all the time at the event. And so we will be making sure that you are observing in practice what you've written about. And so that safety award will only be awarded if we're happy that a team has done everything in a proper, safe manner. So I think that covers all of the awards. So I will pass you on to Rod, who will talk about scrutineering.
Thank you, Lambert, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I'm Rod Williams, the UAS Challenge Chief Scrutineer, and I'm going to run through the Flight Readiness Review and Scrutineering brief. Next slide, please. So what is the FRR? Really, it's a formal requirement to provide the evidence that your UAS is safe and ready to fly. We expect your submissions by the 19th of June, but what does that include? A 10-minute video of continuous flying. So that's all phases of flight from preparation for takeoff to maneuvering, landing and recovery. Sorry, can we next slide there, please? And again. Note for the demonstration of payload dispatch, this should be completed on the ground. You should also have pre-flight checklists, as you can see, Spitfire flight reference cards there, but yours may well be downloads on your laptop. And as Lambert mentioned before, completing the Form 701, which has quite a number of requirements shown here, and it's important that you do complete all those. And I'll come to the 701 again a little bit later on. And here it is. It contains a significant amount of detail about your UAS and is very important to us for both the scrutineering and the flight readiness review. Can you click again, please? Great. So the areas shown shaded in blue are required to be completed by you. What you should do with the form is delete any of the things like the bubble in there and complete those areas shown in blue on this slide. It actually requires quite a lot of technical detail and examples of the equipment and the systems fitted. If you look at the bottom 7 or 8 lines, which are purple blocks on the left, it's the technical detail of those equipments and systems that you have fitted. So when you've completed the form, you should sign it at the top up by the bubble there, where we've got George Stevenson's signature, and PDF, and appropriately title the file for submission with your video. Okay, next slide, please. So what is a scrutineer? Here's the Wikipedia definition. We're effectively known as the trappers, with our marking boards as we go around in the pit lanes, trying to pick up the detail from your UAS and questioning you on how you've been organised. Next slide, please. For UAS Challenge, scrutineering is the final phase before flying, where we inspect your UAS in the pit lane. Now, this should take less than 20 minutes, but requires considerable effort from you to be appropriately prepared. And this is quite often where we get a lot of hold-ups and queues develop. When you come to be scrutineered, you should not be undertaking any last-minute adjusting or fettling, and all the documentation in your F700 aircraft log folder should be up to date and signed off. We'll inspect your UAS and ask a series of detailed questions about how you organised your team and you designed and built your aircraft. And you can see the 4 stages of scrutineering inspections, which are all recorded in the Form 702 in your aircraft log. The compliance checks look at compliance with the rules. The airworthiness inspection picks up on the integrity and build of your aircraft. And the flight control and functional checks are conducted as you cross towards the flight line to check that everything works in terms of inputs that give sense and direction to the actual manoeuvring elements of your UA. And finally, we make an assessment towards various scrutineers' prizes. Can you click again? As you pass through the various stages, you will be awarded the coloured stickers progressing from red through amber to green, which will be put on your aircraft as a visual cue as to your progress. Next slide, please. So phase 1 is the safety and specification compliance checks. And here the accuracy and detail with which you've completed your Form 701 FRR certificate is key in helping us assess your UAS. You should also have any supporting documentation available, and we will undertake detailed compliance checks, such as weighing the aircraft and looking at the visibility of panels and batteries. The next phase is the visual airworthiness inspection, where we assess your integrity management. This is in the 3 areas of structural, propulsion, and systems integrity. In these, we're looking to see if your systems and controls have been put together securely and that you've considered all integration issues. Next slide, please. Critically, we will look at fasteners. That's really your nuts and bolts. Examples are shown here of what options you have for the use of lock nuts or lock washers, where bolts are shown in safety with more than 1.5 threads showing. Or you have secondary means of security, such as araldite or torque strike marks, which indicate when vibration has loosened nuts. Indeed, systems may be secured with araldite or Velcro as that secondary security measure. For wiring and soldering, we will look at the quality of your soldering and the neatness of the wires to prevent slack wires interfering with control runs, mechanisms, or access. And again, something when you're in the industry, you try and minimize excess wiring because it's extra weight to be carried around, which increases fuel consumption and reduces endurance. Next slide, please. And again, when this phase is complete, you'll be awarded the red sticker for passing scrutineering, and you will then pass to airside for the controls and flight functional checks on your UAS. This will be to ensure the systems operate in the correct sense and direction, and that your payload release and flight termination systems work correctly when activated. You will also have had your timed assembly run, which contributes to the operational supportability prize. On completion of this phase, you will be awarded the amber functional checks complete sticker. Next slide, please. Now, I've mentioned the Form 700 aircraft log, which is a crucial part of the airworthiness audit trail. This you will have with you at the aircraft, but it's also where you will provide us information when we come and do our inspections. You'll also need to take it with you to the flight line so that Chris, the flight safety officer, can see that you have completed all the previous stages and that you are recommended to fly. It should include as a minimum your F701 Flight Readiness Review Certificate, the F702 Scrutineer's Checklist, and finally the F705 Aircraft Release Certificate. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the 701, the Flight Readiness Review Certificate. And you'll have completed this for submission for your FRR. As I say, important for us to be able to check, and you can see, oh, next click, please. On page 2, that you will have put all those systems that we require to check off. You put pictures in there. Please crop them and fit them into the box so that it all stays on the one page. That would be very helpful. Click again. And page 3, which you don't need to send us, is effectively a top tips page and includes how you will approach both the FRR and indeed the fly-off event. It includes what you need for your video. If you could click again. The technical and organizational elements of scrutineering, and your procedural checklists or flight reference cards. So there's some useful guidance for you on what you need to produce. Next slide, please. The Form 702 is the Scrutineer's checklist, which records your compliance, integrity and functional checks, and is a marking guide for the Scrutineers, so they can pick up on the Scrutineer, the airworthiness and the operational supportability prizes. What we'll be looking at in using this will be things like your design quality, covering compliance and ease to inspect, maintain and transport your UA, airworthiness integrity from the inspections, and your team procedures to ensure safety, quality and configuration management. The final form I'll cover is the F705 Release to Flight Certificate. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. This is the key document in your 700 aircraft log, and it covers the various stages of scrutineering through to the flight line with the flight safety officer. It will require signatures at each stage from both the university team captain and the IMechE representative supervising that stage. And all preceding actions must be complete and signed off before proceeding to the next serial. So this is a classic aircraft log where you sign off with both your signature and your printed name, and then supervised signature and name and the date. So we're looking for those to be correctly completed. Next slide, please. Oh, you can see it, the stages at which you will then be awarded the stickers. So in summary, be prepared for scrutineering. It requires that you thoroughly check your documentation. You've practiced putting your UAS together and getting it ready for flight using flight reference or procedural cards. And critically, it's put together in a robust and safe manner. Finally, in order to help, we've also put a couple of best practice design guides on the Mashroom site to help you, and the current Form 700 forms will also be there. Are there any questions? I can't see any in the chat. So good luck with your final preparations. I look forward to seeing you in July, and I will hand you over to Chris, the Flight Safety Officer.
Thanks, Rod. I'll keep my section nice and short and sweet because most of the safety stuff that I want to talk about we'll actually do at the live event when you're there in person, so that we can sort of show you what you can and can't do and bits and pieces like that. The important aspect for me is my job is essentially to stop you creating Skynet, and I'm here to stop your aircraft joining the revolution against mankind, as I always say. So when you're on site, you'll find there's restrictions on where you can and can't go in terms of airside versus non-airside. And the reason for that is we are going to treat this site as a full-size airport, essentially. So you have to imagine that there are aircraft around all the time. As you can see from the slide there, we have a bright yellow line going across, which is the airside boundary. Under no circumstances is anybody to cross that line without permission from either myself or the flight line marshals. And when you're on the site, you'll then see that there's a red boundary there, and that is the geofence. So under no circumstances are any aircraft to go outside of that. So with this information, you can plan a lot of your mapping, waypoint and geofencing and so on onto your aircraft in advance of turning up on the site. Just remember that that red line is the absolute maximum boundary. Any aircraft that looks like it's going to leave that boundary, we will take control of and bring back. The waypoints that are here on this chart are only set out at the moment as a guide. The takeoff and landing point is probably accurate. That's probably where we will be flying from. However, if the wind changes to a northerly on the day, we might use a slightly different position to give more people more chance to fly. The key thing I want to get across to everybody that's going to bring an aircraft to the live event is the 7 Ps. Pretty poor planning promotes pretty poor performance. Everything that's done, everything that you do in advance, you're going to have a 15-minute window when you come out to the flight line. That's 15 minutes of setting up and flying. So if you are unprepared, if you get out to the flight line and you've forgotten to bring an important tool with you, or you're just not organized as a team and you're not chatting to each other and doing what you need to do, you're going to waste a lot of your slot. Yeah. So to get the most out of your flying time and the most scores possible from the judges, just plan ahead, make sure that you're ready to fly from the moment you arrive on site. You know, you're not still building the aircraft in the hangar 2 days after the event started. Bring an aircraft that's ready to fly, ready to go, and be in a place ready to start. The last aspect on here states insurance. If I can have the next slide, please. The insurance will link into dropping of articles, as well as whether you're a member of the British Model Flying Association, the Large Model Association, or FPV UK. When it comes to the live event itself, it will be myself and my team of safety pilots that will do all of the flying. So if you've got your own pilot for doing your own practice and testing, that's great. But when you come to the event, it will be myself and my team that do the flying, which means you'll be on our insurance. But you'll probably still need some form of insurance if you want to leave equipment lying around for trip hazards. So that's probably something for the universities to consider. When you're doing your practice flying, though, and you might be doing some testing, just bear in mind that insurance is quite an important thing. If your aircraft does go off and cause an accident, you want to make sure you're protected. But the key aspect here is dropping of articles. Now, during the competition, we will be dropping articles from your drones onto the field, which as an organisation we have permission for. However, it's actually against the law to do it outside of Article 16. So if you're in the open categories, the A1, A2 and A3, then Cap 722 says you must not allow or permit any item to be dropped from your aircraft. So if you want to practice dropping payloads from your drones while flying, make sure that you're a member of either the British Model Flying Association, the Large Model Association, or FPV UK, as that will give you access to their Article 16 authorizations, which does permit the dropping of articles, provided it's done so in a manner that won't endanger people or property. On this slide, it shows the SAA, which is the Scottish Aircraft Association. They no longer have an Article 16, so it's only the BMFA, IMechE and FPV UK. Obviously, for international teams, just bear in mind that the laws in your country are what you will need to follow. And when you come over to the UK, we'll make sure that we help sort you out with the UK regulations while you're here. So that's pretty much it from me. Very short and sweet. The key thing is just plan ahead, make sure you're organised and stay lawful and safe at all times. Thank you. I think I'll hand you back to Emma now, and then we can do the questions, isn't it? I believe, yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. There is one question on the chat. Will the fly-off occur chronologically according to team number?
Well, I think the answer to that is no, it's in their order of readiness to fly. I think is the right answer to that, Kristina.
Yeah, so just because you're team 1 does not mean you'll go first. The first flight line will depend on those who have filled in the FRR correctly. If you are ready to fly and your FRR contained the information required, you will be first priority onto that flight line. If you are ready, so you need to have your aircraft be set up, be ready to fly, and have all your documentation in order and go through scrutineering to get your space on that flight line. If we have 20 teams that are all ready to fly at exactly the same time, priority will be given to those who completed their FRR correctly, and we didn't have to come back and ask additional questions. If not, and there are 2 or 3 teams ready, and it's a case of whoever is ready first, you will be given your number on the flight line, and you'll watch the flight line. Will have a board up in the main marquee, which will be acting as your hangar with the pits, and everyone will be given an allocated slot as soon as you come up with your scrutineering paperwork to say you are ready to go, and you will go in there and the flight line will move across. Hopefully that answers the question.
I think it links into that pre-planning thing I mentioned, the 7 Ps. Those teams that are organised and planning ahead will get to maximise their flying opportunities.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got another one. What would be the penalty for exceeding the storage container size limits so that more protection for the aircraft can be added inside?
One for you, Lambert.
I'm not sure I entirely understand the question.
Maximum dimension.
The storage container is the size that it is. You can't modify in any way the airdrop box container. So I could you explain further that question, please?
Michael, are you on the line?
Lambert, they mean the storage container for the unboxing have the specific size dimensions.
Oh, sorry, I'm totally misunderstanding. Okay, right. I'm sorry. I'm with you. I thought you were talking about the payload. Yes, no, the box itself. No, you must keep the box within the limits prescribed in the rules. So I'm afraid no, you can't exceed your storage box size.
It's not only for the factor of keeping the aircraft secure in transportation, but also we need to consider safety within your pits. Obviously, you will, if your storage boxes go outside of those dimensions, we've got to account for space in there as well between the teams. So it's really important that you stick to them specification and dimensions that have been given as a requirement. Otherwise, you will lose space in your pits. There's no other place to store them. All your equipment for your aircraft, including that transport container, will be stored in your pits in your lane.
Thank you. We've got another one. Does Article 16 mean that we'll be able to drop cargo on our test flights that will take place up in Buckminster prior to the fly-off event? think is
So
that
Article 6, if this is relating to a team flying at the competition, all flying at the live event will be done by myself and my team. So we're insured for that separately, and we have a permission for that separately, which is outside of Article 16. But any teams that are doing UK flights and practicing, then it would cover them for their own flights and their own practice.
But I mean, this only applies to an international team if they're wanting to do a test flight.
If it's an international team doing a test flight in the UK, it would still be through us during the live event, won't it? If not, we can sort out something on the day. That's not a problem. We can make sure we can do payload test drops for the international teams.
Yes, but if the question is coming from a UK team, just to remind them, there's no opportunity for doing test flying at Buckminster for a UK team. The first flight they do will be a mission flight.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers that one.
Thank you. And got one here asking about the pit space. So Kristina, I'm not sure if you're able to take this one, but asking what space do we have in the pits? Last year we had 2 tables and benches. Is it similar this year?
Yeah, so that's not a problem. It'll be similar to last year. You will have benches and large tables at your disposal. We'll have a designated area, which is your pit. How you arrange them, you can move them about if you want to, but just there will be safety volunteers in the actual marquee and pits. So ask them if you want to move anything, and they'll help you with that. But you will have, at a minimum, them 2 tables and most probably a bench or some sort of a side table as well. But we will have spare capacity for them. So if you need any more, let us know and we can see if we can make them fit. But we'll base it on what your requirements are. Some teams prefer to have a few more benches and some don't, because they like working with their UAS in the centre. So that is up to the teams. We can have that discussion, but there will be a basis of just 2 tables and most probably some sort of bench there for you. And I can answer the next one, Emma. Do we have to keep our UAV and equipment at the venue at the end of the day with us, or are we allowed to take it with us? Your UAV, because we can't, if you're camping on the site, you cannot work on them following the 8 o'clock, the 6 o'clock deadline for when you have to be out the marquee at the end of each day. And that's for safety reasons. So you cannot take it back to the campsite. If you want to take it away with you at the end of the day, if you're going back to your own location, you can, but we do not recommend it because most likely more damage happens in transporting it anywhere, and then you will have to go through re-scrutineering the following day no matter what. Lambert, do you have any other comments on taking equipment away?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you take it away because you're not camping at the site, you'll have to have it re-scrutineered the next time you appear on site, I would think.
So it puts you at a disadvantage.
Yes, we would need to re-scrutineer any second aircraft, and of course it potentially isn't the one that you've shown in your flight readiness review video. So it does require a depth of detailed scrutineering.
Yeah, so although there's nothing to say in the rules that you can't take it away, we really do advise against it, and you will then go back to the bottom of that list for re-scrutineering. So if there are 10 other teams waiting for scrutineering that day, you will then go in that queue with them, whether you were ready to fly the next day or not. We will know what is missing in each of the marquee and the pits, because we will be the last people in there prior to closing them. And as we said, you cannot work on them past that 6 o'clock deadline, just to safety reasons as well. We are responsible on that site while the competition is going ahead. So while we don't have people there supervising the activity, it's just what has to, the rules that have to be abided to.
Okay, thank you. There's one asking, is it possible to show up with 2 UAVs in case one crashes?
At the end of the day, I mean, it's we've had teams in the past turn up with 2. It's just about making sure you maintain your pits area space-wise. And as Rod and Lambert state, anything that needs scrutinising will have to be scrutinised. So if you crash and go to Plan B aircraft, it will need to be started from scratch, won't it?
Yeah, exactly, Chris.
There's a previous question about the Form 700 forms saying, can you use the 2021 forms? And I think the answer to that is no, because I think there will be some changes to the forms.
No, yeah, I've literally just updated those, so I'll send them across so they can be put onto the Mashroom site. So hopefully they'll be up in the next 24 hours or so. If I get them to Emma.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Someone's just asked about the recording of this webinar. Yeah, we'll make the recording of the webinar available for if any of your other team members want to view, or for any teams that weren't able to join today as well. So the recording will be made available. Okay, so that's all of the questions that I can see in the chat. Does anyone have any final questions before we round up today? No, I can't see anything. So in that case, I think that concludes the webinar today. So thank you again for everyone for taking the time to join us today. If you do think of any questions subsequently, just email the UAS Challenge email address, and your query will be distributed to the relevant person. But yeah, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.